Welcome back to Painting the Light. And today I thought we'd do a cabin scene. I had a request from a friend, and we'll also paint some happy trees and bushes, probably a nice river in here. So let's take off immediately. I have already covered the canvas with a thin, even coat of liquid white, and we are ready to start. So let's take the twinge brush and go into some phthalo blue. We just tap it nicely, and we make sure we have an even distribution of color on the brush. Now I want to make a sky, but I won't start by making my regular X strokes like I've always done. So let's go up here and let the brush dance around. And I'm leaving some open spots in here because this will be eventually some nice cloud indications back in the distance. Okay. And now, as I told you, I want to have a river down here. So I will take the same color, just phthalo blue, and I'll also add a small amount of phthalo green to that. Tap it firmly. And I will just fill this in. I'm gonna cover most of the river anyway. So I just fill this in to have a nice background color. And I start from the bottom and working upwards so that my water looks lighter as I go up. And you can blend it as much as you want. Something like so. And we have a nice background to work with. Okay. Now I will take a clean twinge brush, and now I want to blend the sky and leave these spots open, so I will start from down here. Make sure your brush is dry and clean. And I just soften the sky, removing the brush marks. And by the time we have the liquid white on, this is so easy to do. Nothing to worry about, just let the brush dance. We want a little bit of action in the sky today. Very lightly go across. You can keep blending until you achieve the desired effect of your sky. Okay. Now I want to make some clouds, and for that I'm gonna use the fan brush today. We're gonna have some more distinct clouds now. Go into some titanium white and also grab a touch of bright red. I want to have a nice pinkish glow in my clouds. So load the brush full of paint and decide where you want your clouds to be, and with just the corner of the brush let us dust around just wherever you want. Wherever you want your cloud to be, just make a nice floating cloud. And keep moving, making circular strokes. A little bit more white. And make sure you have a lot of paint in the brush. Maybe there's a nice cloud living up here. A little bit more color, and you can put in your world as few or as many clouds you want. Now I want to take a twinge brush and I'm gonna blend the bottom of these. Just the bottom. We soften it nicely, lift upwards, we flap them a bit. Can you see the little streaks we're having up there? It's okay to have some of those because we blend it very softly, and you have a fantastic cloud already. And up here a little bit. The same down here. Fluff them up. And this gives you good practice. You can use whatever brushes you want, whatever colors. You can have dark clouds too. Very nice. Let's have a couple more clouds. So I will take the same titanium white color and bright red. You can leave the red out if you want. You can add more, whatever makes you happy. And let's come up here and let's have a nice big cloud. And as you can see, this cloud pushes this one back. It's a very nice effect. And maybe he's got company, he's not alone. And clouds come in every possible size. So just let it happen. Let them float around. I'm gonna blend the bottom. Fluff them up. But very gently, do not use lots of pressure to that. And very, very gently go across. And we have some nice sky in just a matter of minutes. And you can see we have the different indications here and there, as you can see. This adds a little interest to our sky. So I want to play with some nice background trees. So I'm gonna take a 1-inch brush and I will go into some dark sienna, some Van Dyke brown, and a little bit of sub green, but it's mostly dark sienna. We load the brush full of paint, and as you can see I have a curved edge, and this is with what I paint. So let's decide where we want some tree indications and just push them in with our 1-inch brush and just tap. A little bit more color, just wherever you want. Probably there's a big nice tree in here. And I always load the brush as necessary, vary the color a bit. Always using lots of pressure. And as you can see I have darker color in here than in here, so this actually pushes the other tree or bush back. Maybe there's another one in here. Always load the brush as necessary. Maybe we have a nice big tree that's outside of our picture. This adds a little interest. Okay. Now, as long as I have this color going, I'm gonna take a dirty twins brush in here. I'm gonna take the same color, browns, the green. I'm gonna just tap it nicely. As you can see, I push. You know, I'm tapping the palette and also the canvas moves. That's why I'm laughing. So I will go in here and just fill this in. I want to have a piece of land, and this will be where my cabin will live. We're gonna have some nice grassy areas today. And I just tap some color in here, nothing to worry about. It's so easy and so fun to do. And it's up to you to decide when you will finish tapping and adding more paint, more color, less color. You decide where you want your river to be. A little bit more paint for me in here. That's easy. We have already filled the background for our landmass. Okay. Now I'm gonna go and highlight my trees, but before that, let's put some tree trunks in here. I'm gonna take some paint thinner and go into the same color, the same brown color that I have. I'm taking lots of paint thinner, and I'm gonna load the liner brush with lots of thin paint, and we make sure we have a nice pointy edge to work with. Let's add some trunks. They might not be visible, but that's the point in here because we're currently far away and we don't want a lot of detail, a lot of trunks, because we're gonna put lots of leaves above those. Just some nice trunks. We always keep the paint thin, otherwise it won't stick and we're not gonna have a nice background to play with. Maybe there is a little trunk in here that's more visible, is left alone. Wherever you want, you just put this wherever it makes you happy. Maybe the trunk in here is coming from the outside. And I'm also putting some nice tree trunks that are just roaming around. Okay. So let's take now, I'm gonna take a 1-inch brush for the highlights. Make sure it's clean and dry, and I'm gonna go into some paint thinner, but not too much. I'm gonna load the brush with lots of highlight paint. We're gonna use cadmium yellow and some sub green for that. There's also the brown colors into my sub green, so I actually make a more dirty green color, light green. Let me add some paint in there. Remember our golden rule that a thin paint sticks to a thick paint. That's why we always thin our highlight. So make sure you have a lot of paint loaded in the brush, and let's push out some leaves by barely touching the canvas. Starting from the top of the tree, we can paint some nice highlights. Can you see the thousands of leaves living in here? That's what we want to have. And put them wherever you want. And I just make these highlights a little bit lighter for you to see. They're more distinct. And nice push this here. And vary the color, play through the yellows, the greens. You can add some bright red. Maybe this little over here. I like this one. Wherever you want. Some nice grassy areas leaves in here. This is probably the easiest way to make some nice leaf indications using the 1-inch brush. And if the paint won't stick, just keep it thin and some more paint thinner. You can also add liquid white, but I do not prefer it because it dilutes the color. It makes it more grayish when you add some nice dark color, so I just want to play through the paint thinner, but you have to be very, very careful when it comes to paint thinner. Not add too much. And we just have some nice bushes and trees in the background. And I'm hardly using any pressure, just make sure you always have lots of paint. That's the secret. Lots of paint on the brush. Always working with the rounded corner up. Maybe another bush lives in here. Some more sub-greens. Let's go up here to the ones closest to the clouds. Maybe I'll add some bright red to this. And here comes a nice orange bush, you know. It adds just a bit of interest for us. A little bit more paint. And always remember to leave some dark areas in between, so you don't end up with a flat painting. That's not what we are looking for. Just wherever you want. Okay, so I think we already have a nice background. I'm gonna take a clean knife and just scratch some indications of sticks and twigs. That easily. Okay. Now, before I go to do my cabin, I want to fill in a nice grassy area, so I'm gonna take a 2-inch brush and load the brush full of color and tap it nicely. Going to some sub-green and just tap and push. It's very important to push so we load paint to the edge of the bristles. A little bit more green. Something like so. And we decide the lay of the land, how we want it curvy or flat, and we just tap with a 2-inch brush. As you can see, thousands and thousands of grassy areas appear, but I'm using very, very little pressure for that. Not lots of pressure. We always load the brush unnecessary, and if your paint won't stick, you can always add some paint thinner. A little bit more color. And as you can see, the more paint you add, the easier it gets to find out where your grass is. Just tapping nicely. And I always layer the paint, I always layer the color, so we add depth to our painting. That easily. You can make nice grassy areas. And a little bit more paint in here. This is very relaxing, very nice. Always varying the color. You can play through the greens, the yellows. You think down the paint as necessary. And this is a very nice place to practice your strokes. That easily. You can make fantastic grass. And the more you tap, the softer it gets. And when this dries, you will be amazed by the texture, by the looks of it. That easily. Okay. Little bit more paint wherever you think that you need it. Okay. Now, as I told you, this is going to be a river, so we have to decide where we want our river bank. And for me, the river bank is probably straight But before that, it would be nice to have a little bit of reflection into the water. So I'm gonna clean my twins brush a bit. And let's see that we have some nice grass and soil effects in the water. So I just pull this down. Make sure you pull straight down. That easily. And then just go across, blend it just a bit. That easily. And we'll take the knife now and make some soil. I'm gonna take some Van Dyke brown for that. Pull it straight downwards and get a little roll of paint. And with this roll we always paint, so let's say that it comes around here. We need something to hold all this grassy area. And if you notice, I do not use my finger on the blade because I'm adding a lot of pressure and I'm not gonna have a nice effect. So I just guide my knife. Alright, some more color. Maybe from here. Always load your tools as necessary. More paint, less paint. When you get some experience, you will really realize from your own that you're gonna need more paint, less paint, what kind of movement you have. Not easily. And we have a nice riverbank. Now I'm gonna take some titanium white and some dark sienna. And I'm gonna leave it marbly like this. Cut a small roll of paint. I'm gonna highlight those using absolutely no pressure. The same way we do with a mountain. We did a couple of mountains last week, so I really hope you enjoyed these episodes. And if there is something specific that you'd like to see, something different, just leave me a comment, send me a message. I'm always here to be asked questions. So I'm gonna take a little bit of liquid white on my palette. I'm gonna smash it nice. I'm gonna take some brown color and we pull those very flat and we cut across a little roll on the edge of the knife, and we're gonna have our water line here. And be sure you make this line straight, as straight as possible. Some more paint here, and you just keep moving. Probably the most difficult thing for me is to keep this line straight, but it only takes practice. There is nothing we cannot do here. Everything is really so easy. And if you have a line that's more distinct than the other, you can just keep blending it until it goes away. Okay. Now I want to bring this all together, so I'm gonna take the brush that I made the bushes with. Has a lot of paint on. I'm gonna tap the same way I did with that twins brush, and I'm gonna come up here. And as you can see, I'm bringing this together. I'm using just the corner of the brush. And I'm using the smaller brush than the twins brush because it sneaks in here easier. Much easier. And as you can see now, the land and the grass just keep coming towards the water. So it doesn't show us that those rocks and stones we made are just floating above our grass. Okay, little bit more color here. Okay, so now we have to decide where we want our cabin to be. So let's say that we have our cabin somewhere right here, and the easiest way to start making the cabin is by scraping off a basic shape. So let's say that our cabin, I want a small cabin, so let's say that the roof is somewhere right here. Scrape off a basic shape. That easily. And you can use the small edge of the knife also. That sneaks easier. And as you can see, we already have the outside ready. And by scraping off, we also remove the loose paint that we're having already on the canvas. That's better. So let's take some dark sienna. Pull this out very flat, and we load the roll of paint in the edge of the knife. Now we have to decide the commitment, and as you can see, I just tap in the beginning. I have a nice outline, and I fill this in that easily. And probably cabins give a lot of headache to some people, and I am one of those, but I just keep trying, just keep practicing, never give up. That's what it's all about, not giving up. And I just fill this in with my palette knife, that easily. A little bit more paint here. And it's also wise to use the small knife for the places where the other knife is more difficult to get. Just fill this in. A little bit more paint. And make sure you have a firm and dry paint when you're doing this technique, because as you can see, I keep blending and there is no mud mixing, because we always do some movements that require dry paint. That's why it's called wet on wet. We're using wet paint, we do not let each layer to dry. So as you can see, I have the basic shape ready, I have put in the color, and now I want to highlight. So let's say that this is a slab made cabin, but before that I'm gonna make the roof. I'm gonna take some bright red. Let's go up here. I'm gonna take some dark sienna and some bright red, and I'm gonna use the small edge of the knife. I load some paint here, and let's put in some tiles starting from the bottom, and I just work upwards. Always using the small blade and the small corner of it. Okay, a little bit more color on this side. And you can always come back and fix some if you're not satisfied with them. That's great. And now for the inside, as I told you, I'm gonna make some slabs. So I'm gonna take some white, a little bit more white, some dark sienna, maybe use some yellow ochre too. And I have lots of color goings on here. I'm gonna take a roll of paints. I'm using a small knife, and I just come here and just make some indications of slabs. And he also picks some other color, and this makes it even more interesting. A little bit more paint. I'll come down here, some more slabs, and this is where the small knife comes in handy. It sneaks very easily at those small places. And in here I want some darker color. I'll go do some titanium white, some blue, and some Van Dyke brown. I want a darker color. And the same logic goes here. I'm gonna just load some paint. And I just drag the paint a little bit, so I'm having the indication of some nice slabs. Now I want to have a door in here. I'm gonna take some Van Dyke brown on the small edge of the knife, and then I'll come right in here and just put in a nice door. Maybe you also want to have some windows. So let's take Van Dyke brown, and we always pull the paint flat, cut across a roll of paint, and let's give him some eyes. What do you think? It's like his house is looking at you. Maybe another window in here. And now, in order to make the whole house more distinct and separate all these aspects, I'm gonna take some straight white. I load the knife the same way I do with my waterline, and I will go just in here and gonna make it more distinct. Just scratch in some nice separation. Okay. Same goes here. And it's also nice to add the least little touch of white in here, so you can actually separate the roof from the rest of the building. Okay. So let's fix that a little bit. I'm gonna have some more slabs from here, so this actually doesn't look that it's empty. Take some white and separate it. Alright. Now I want to do a cabinectomy in here. I'll just come down here and scratch it off a little bit, work our perspective. And I'll take the small brush again, load some paint, and bring all this together. And by the time I have a lot of paint, I can come above my cabin without mixing mud. Just be very careful with it. So let's say that we want to have a little path, but before that I want to fix my line here. There's nothing that you cannot fix. It's very easy to fix everything. So no matter how bad you think you have messed up, you can always fix it. So let's take a filbert brush and take some of the dark sienna, a little bit of Van Dyke brown, and just scratching a nice path. But as the cabin is far away, we don't want it that big. Maybe it comes down here. Fix this a little bit. Okay, now let's move forward and let's fill the scene. I'm gonna take my dark colors. I'm gonna go into some Van Dyke brown, some midnight black this time. Top this nicely. And I'm gonna come in here and seclude all this. And I only added the black in order to make it darker. I'm gonna have some nice ground in here. I'm gonna add some more grass, some big trees. Just fill this in. And by the time we have that blue color underneath, we do not have a plain white color coming through. I want to fix this a little bit. Okay, some nice landmasses. And probably there is a happy bush in here somewhere. So I'm gonna take this and just smash in some nice bushy effects. So let's take the twins brush with the grass color on, add some sap green, and we just push. It's very important to make this little line of color on the edge of your brush by pushing. And let's come from here and just follow the lay of the land. Just wherever you want. Always remember to layer the paint, layer the effects. And if your paint won't stick, just add some paint thinner to your color. And I really hope I managed to show you an easy way, an effective way to do the cabin. It's been a while since I last painted a cabin, so I really hope I helped. I just fill this in nicely. A little bit more paint. I just love making grass using the twins brush. That easily will have filled the whole area. Okay. And as I told you, the more you tap, the softer it gets. So if you think that your grass is too distinct, you can just keep tapping it, but I like having a wild grass indication here. Just wherever. And also, let's do those bushes. I'm gonna use the ones brush. I'm gonna take a little bit of paint thinner, and it's always important to load the brushes as necessary. Have the curve on. just wherever you want. And you could always have all the area grassy, no bushes, but I just think it adds a little bit of interest. Let's scratch in some nice sticks and twigs. Okay. Now I think it's time to have a big tree from this side. I don't want this left out, so I'm gonna take my filbert brush and I'm gonna go into some Van Dyke brown, some midnight black, just brush mix those. And I'm gonna come, I don't want to destroy the clouds, but I think it will be interesting, it will push them back. So I'm gonna come here and we have a nice tree trunk. Start from the top and work downwards. And as you go downwards, add more and more pressure. Let's add another one. I think it's very nice adding some big trees in the foreground because this adds depth and interest to a painting. And as you can see, we already have two nice poles, and you know what, I want to have another big tree, why not? I'm gonna save the cabin and I will just come up here. And this is also helping us to push the bushes back. Okay, I'm gonna take my liner brush, lots of paint thinner, and I'm going to the same color, the brown and the black, more paint thinner. And make sure you have a very thin paint. We twirl into the paint and we have a nice sharp edge. And I want to have some limbs on those clouds. If your paint won't stick, just add more paint thinner. And as you can see, I can go above that loose paint in the background without mud mixing. That's what I've told you earlier about the wet on wet painting technique, that we use firm paints, we layer the paint, and we can achieve fantastic effects, seriously. As you can see, in only a matter of minutes, we have painted lots of different things. We have painted the cabin, we have painted water, clouds, lots of leaves. And it's also nice to be shaking your hands while you're doing that. It adds more realistic effects to your limbs. Maybe there is a limb that comes right in front of our cabin. Why not? And in here, if you see it and think about it, there are lots of layers of paint. We have the liquid white, we have the blue, we have the brown that we made the background, we have the yellow, and we have also 2 layers of paint for the cabin. That makes it 7, and now we have 8 different layers of paint, and we have not mud mixed. Can you believe it? And this is the magic of this painting technique. That's why I suggest people paint like this. This is the purpose of this channel, to make you paint. And although sometimes we are running into some mistakes, some problems, because whatever I do is live on camera, you can see that I always fix. We really have nothing to worry about. So let's have some highlights and some shadows on my big tree trunks. I'm gonna take the same color, the same dark sienna and white, probably add some yellow ochre too. A marbly pile of paint, we'll get our roll of paint, and as the cabin shows, the light comes from the right, so I'm gonna take the knife and lightly touch. Just touch, and this makes some nice effect. When this painting dries, you can actually feel the bark of the tree. This is one of the easiest and most effective ways to make bark on a tree. Probably one of my most favorite. And I also think it's very relaxing. It's very nice. Just by touching a canvas with a knife, you can have so many different effects. It's very easy. And you can do it too. It just take some practice, nothing more. And also the right equipment. It's very important to have the right paint, the right canvas. A little bit more paint. And even the trunk in here is a bit curvy, I can still highlight it even though my knife is straight, has a straight edge. Just touch very gently. Let's go to the other side too. Just touch. And in here I have a branch that comes all the way above the trunk, so I just leave a gap. So it shows that my trunk in here is covered with a limb. Try to pay attention to some of these details. When people look at your work in person and realize how many nice effects you have, they just won't believe that you did it in just an hour. Okay, now I'm gonna take the dark color in here. It's the same color that I used to make the shadow in the cabin, and I will come the reverse way and just add some of this, some reflected light, some shadows. That easily and that quickly. It's very important for me to paint quickly. When you do not have lots of free time and you want to have a good time by painting, you can use this technique. A little bit more shadow in here. And it's also very important when you're painting with this technique to have the right easel. I have made my easel by a step ladder. This is just a regular platform step ladder. And I hired a blacksmith to make me a hold mechanism that holds my canvas steady. It's a very heavy piece of equipment, but it's definitely worth making one. And as you can see, no matter how much I shake the ladder, the painting goes nowhere. That's why we use this easel, because we're using a lot of pressure at some point while making the background for the bushes, for example. You really need the right equipment for this technique, otherwise it's very, very easy to paint because when it comes to techniques, you just follow your heart, let the brush and the paint work. And that easily we have some nice tree trunks. And also I want to have some leaves on those. So I'm gonna take the big brush this time, add some green to that, some bright red too, and just tap and push. And I'll just use the corner of the brush and just have some nice grassy things. A little bit more here and there. I tap very gently, using lots of paint and just the corner of the brush. I don't want to destroy my nice effects. And as you can see, we're very close to the end. I'd like to thank you for watching me. I'm gonna fix the foot of these trees using the same brush, and we clean the edges so you don't see the tree that just standing there floating above the brush. We just fix it by tapping. So that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed it. It's something different from what we did the past few weeks. I really enjoyed your company. Thank you very much for watching. And until next time, I wish you happy painting. Take care of yourself and your beloved ones, and I'll see you soon.